AC Milan, one of the most supported clubs in the world, and their curva sud at San Siro was practically empty by the 60th minute of their loss against Atalanta this past weekend. Despite being the dominant force in Milan derbies for the last little bit, they've had to watch their rivals win the Scudetto, and again, despite starting so well under Allegri and some people pointing to them as potential title racers, especially given they didn't have European football to worry about this season. I mean, they've absolutely fumbled this season. They've fumbled and tumbled down the table. AC Milan were the masters of their own destiny, Champions League qualification-wise, all season long. But now, Juve, a team that had a total false start at the beginning of the season, has passed them. You have protests, you have booing and jeering of the players, you have some honestly very impressive cell phone light work to voice their displeasure with the direction of the club. Man, weren't Modric and Allegri supposed to lead this team alongside Pulisic early on to way better than this? Yes, they were, and they're not all to blame, but now they are floundering, and there are calls to sack the board once again, demands that Redbird Capital sell the club once again. We are here once again. Fellas, thanks for joining me. I'm Adrian. Great to see you again, and let's go to Italy together. Last summer, AC Milan's recruitment seemed like it was okay. From the outside, it looked as though they were building in the right areas. A few midfielders, one of them even former Ballon d'Or winner, Luka Modric, a couple of big splashes, but those splashes were on Nkunku from Chelsea, a profile they already have, which was frustrating given they were clearly looking for an out-and-out striker, and Arden Jashari, who broke his fibula immediately. In the end, the guys who they probably got the most value out of this season have been either from free transfers or low fees. Modric and Rabiot are the standouts in my opinion, performance-wise at least. AC Milan started the season they actually opened with a loss to Cremonese. It's not ideal, but following that, Milan went on a 24-match unbeaten run in Serie A. They beat defending champions Napoli, Roma, Inter, Como, Bologna, etc., etc., etc. An unbeaten run that stretched from August 29th to February 22nd, when they lost to Parma. Along the way, they were also bounced from the Coppa Italia by Lazio back in December 2025 and lost their Supercoppa Italiana semi-final against Napoli in that same month. However, they were comfortably in the Champions League places, sitting in second with 5th place. Juve still 8 points behind them. Surely they wouldn't let this slip, right? Now, in that unbeaten run of 24 matches, they had 9 draws amongst those 15 wins, and frustrating ones as well. 0-0 with the Juve side, where you could see Tudor's time was coming to an end. 2-2 with Pisa, 2-2 with Parma and Sassuolo, a Fiorentina who was fighting relegation at the time. Matches that they shouldn't be dropping if the talk of them being a potential title racer was to be believed. So once they learned how to lose in Serie A again, they sacrificed their ability to draw matches. Draws turned into losses. In the last 11 matches, Milan have won 4, drawn 1, and lost 5. Mid and lower table teams were defeating them, and that comfortable lead over Juventus, that 8-point cushion, well, Spalletti and the fellas, with 2 matches remaining in Serie A, have now overtaken AC Milan in the table. AC Milan, in fact, are in 4th place now, and again, 2 matches remaining. They are level on points with Roma and just 2 points ahead of Como. Milan play Genoa away, then Cagliari at home. Again, matches they should win, but considering their form since the end of February, nothing is a given right now. Como play Parma, who they drew away previously, Cremonese away, who they drew at home, but Cremonese have fallen off since then and are hoping to avoid relegation. Roma have a derby match against Lazio, then play away to Hellas Verona, who are already relegated. Juve, Fiorentina at home, they're a bit of a wild card right now, and a Turin derby to close things out. It's a derby, you never know. So there's still a chance. Milan have the better of Roma on head-to-head, should it come to that, but again, they had such a big lead. They were so comfortably in that top 4 all season long. Now they're cutting it close. Mr. Allegri's Corto Muso could swing against him, which is of course a famous line from him, a reference to horse racing where sometimes a horse finishes a muzzle ahead of the other, but essentially they've won, so who cares how close it was? A win's a win no matter how close kind of thing. However, in the second half of the season, AC Milan have collected just 25 points, their lowest total at this point in the last 9 years. I do wonder if part of the reason why in this season specifically they have regressed, we'll talk about the overarching reasons later, is down to the overperformance or the unsustainable performance of Christian Pulisic. AC Milan was his team early this season. Their attack was held together completely by Christian Pulisic's performances, the LeBron James of soccer himself. The 3-0 win over Udinese, where he had a hand in all 3 goals, the 2-1 win against Napoli, where he had a hand in both goals there as well, 1-0 over Inter, he scored, 3-2 over Torino, he scores 2 goals to rescue a win from the jaws of defeat, and that was from a 24-minute cameo. He was also scoring in the first 2 rounds of the Coppa Italia. Maybe if he wasn't returning from injury against Lazio, things could have been different in that competition. So instead, Lazio went all the way to the Coppa Italia final. But when the calendar changed from 2025 to 2026, it left Pulisic in the past, or at least that version of Pulisic. Now he's injured, but even before his latest injury, he didn't have a single goal in 2026. In 17 appearances, he doesn't have a goal to show for it. So maybe overperformance doesn't quite cover it adequately, as this is just a complete U-turn in form, not even a little bit of overperforming. Rafael Leão is another one who was fantastic in October and November. He started 2026 pretty well, but has faded majorly in the last 8 matches. No goals, just an assist in a 1-0 win over relegated Hellas Verona. Christopher Nkunku, you'd think he could help out the attack after arriving in the summer, right? He was an unbelievable talent at RB Leipzig, but anyone who watched Chelsea knew that he was known for how often he was injured more than anything else. So to sign him, another winger slash inside forward slash attacker who has a tough time choosing what they want to be, when the club so obviously needed a striker and still needs a striker, that's a lot of money, a lot of wasting money. Because the striker they signed last season in January has had a poor season again. Santiago Jimenez is unfortunately another example of recruitment that hasn't worked out for this club. Yes, he had a big injury this season, but 0 goals in 14 appearances for a striker certainly isn't down to just some hard luck, especially when the signs of him not being up to the task began last season. Then they brought in Niklas Füllkrug, and from 18 Serie A appearances, he has scored 1 goal for AC Milan. It paints a picture of how terrible their recruitment has been when you consider that a center back, Pavlovic, is their 5th top scorer with 5 goals. That their joint top scorer with just 10 goals across all competitions is a man who hasn't scored a single goal in 2026. Yes, you're right, it's Christian Pulisic. Part of this is down to Allegri, of course. Not all of it, because he didn't put this squad together. But with Allegri as a coach, you get one of the most pragmatic coaches of the pragmatists. Not exactly pedal to the metal attacking football from him, right? Someone who is struggling to get Juve to attack, can't get this team that hasn't had a successful out-and-out striker since a very old Giroud to score goals. I mean, that's not really a surprise. The AC Milan board has to take responsibility for not just his appointment in a squad that already was going to struggle to attack, but for how they have thrown the squad together. You had ultras protesting outside of San Siro before their match against Atalanta. You had some incredible work done by the ultras to write GF out with their cell phone lights. That's great work. I gotta hand it to them. They're talking about Giorgio Furlani, of course, the CEO of AC Milan, and who the ultras see as culpable for Milan's issues of late. The main factor behind the owners, of course. That was just the cherry on top, as prior to the match, the ultras released a statement that started by talking about the title they won 4 years ago and read as follows. That was a winning team that needed only a few quality international additions to aim higher, but was completely dismantled by a totally incapable and incompetent group of directors, led by Giorgio Furlani, who stands on the rubble of his sporting failure. It is clear for all to see, other than those who have interest in keeping him there, namely the owners whose vision of Milan is purely financial and based on revenue, trampling shamefully over the history of this club and the ambitions its fans always had. How can we stand for a Milan side that doesn't challenge for the Scudetto and is content with battling for 2nd, 3rd, 4th place? How can you trample all over the history of Italy's most prestigious club? Now, they did, however, note that Ilitare, the sporting director, and Maxi Allegri are mostly competent individuals within a system that is kind of designed to interfere with them. Though they named individuals from the commercial strategy people to ticketing people to saying that they are worrying about marketing the club to tourists than to fill the stadium with local fans, real fans. Now, not all tourists are fake fans. Some are there just like, oh, this seems like a cool thing. Some are just fans traveling from abroad. I know that. So Mr. Furlani, even Zlatan is getting heat now too. The owner, Jerry Cardinale, everyone has been asked to leave in what will be Milan's fourth consecutive year of sporting failure, as the Ultras put it. And it wasn't just the gorgeous cell phone light work that the Ultras showed the world in Milan versus Atalanta, but given Milan went 3-0 down by about the hour mark, they flooded the exits as well, leaving the Curva Sud eerily empty. By the way, don't let the 3-2 scoreline fool you. This match was completely dominated by Atalanta. It could have been 5 or 6-0 at one point. All the players that were getting subbed off were getting booed and jeered. Bad. Notably, within the San Siro, you heard more calls for Paolo Maldini. Chants from the crowd, as of course he is a loved figure given him and his family's ties to the club as players. But he was also the sporting director that put together AC Milan's most recent Serie A winning team and spoke of how he wanted to modernize the club and how they needed to spend more on the squad. He hasn't taken on a role at another club since he was sacked by AC Milan back in 2023, but someone like Leonardo has spoken about how he needs to be at Milan, saying, quote, "It doesn't just hurt me not to see him there, it hurts everyone. Paolo belongs in the world of football. I think there are no figures in today's game as complete as he is. He developed himself over time, becoming a top-level executive, successful at the club where he spent 30 years. I'm sure Paolo still has a lot to offer. Today, there is a very political, very complex and archaic structure that sometimes even prevents this from happening. What is needed, beyond ideas, expertise, and desire, is someone who can inspire people and make them believe there is something beautiful worth chasing. It's difficult to find a figure capable of conveying that idea unanimously. I see very few people with those qualities, and Paolo, perhaps, is the only one." So there are 2 games for Milan to save their season and their future seasons as well, because this is a team that spends reluctantly. For them to miss out on the Champions League money for 2 seasons in a row, that would be devastating for Milan. But remember, it's not just the spending of the money, because they did spend on Nkunku, Jashari, etc., but how it's spent and how the squad is built. The Ultras accuse Furlani and the owners of simply purchasing players that they can turn a profit on later, rather than purchasing players that fit a coherent squad building strategy, a strategy to field a competitive squad that actually wins things. Whoa, jump scare. Now, I didn't even go into the laughing gas scandal that is now kind of rocking Serie A and a little bit AC Milan's name, with apparently Teo Hernandez being one of the ringleaders of this party scene where there would be escorts and laughing gas, etc., and plenty of AC Milan players. There's images of them partaking, etc. It's wild stuff. The club's name is in the dirt because of it. It's not really included in this video because it's separate from the on-field issues, but it's just another example of how this club and how the supporters of this club must feel a little bit disillusioned right now. All right, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Is this the beginning of a long, hard road for Milan? Or do you foresee this as a building year for something better next season? Let me know. Otherwise, I see you soon in another video. Later.